Hello, my name is Garetto, and this is my data journalism installation. Where to go next is the work in progress. So, exploring the concept of migrating to another country as a journey from point A to point B, I designed a walking data journey installation through a pavilion, displaying selected countries using conceptual and abstract representations. This is the pavilion I designed. Um, and on the inside there will be these LED displays which will show on an abstract and a conceptual approach in an abstract and conceptual approach different aspects of life in the selected countries. Each stripe, each long stripe like this one, um, will display one country information. So it's a comparison between 6 countries. As you can see here, this is my first information display exploration, in which I selected these 6 countries for the exercise, and I represent each aspect that I'm evaluating here, that I did some analysis on, creating simple visual comparison between them. So if this is the case of representation for these countries, they will be located here in the long stripes, 6 countries, as I mentioned before, with each display showing one of these squares. So people can walk through it from start to finish, like a migration journey, exploring different conditions of each countries for them to make a decision, an informed decision on which country they think at the end is the best one to move for next year. So this is why. Okay, I will cover these concepts that I'm exploring. The first one is the average GDP per capita. This is how much money people earn on that country. The second one is the healthcare access and quality of the country. That one is self-explanatory. The third one is the public expenditure on healthcare as share of the national GDP. So this is not an absolute number, it's a relative number to the GDP, to how much money the people here earns. These ones I had no data on it, so that's why they're represented with this red symbol. The next one is the government expenditure on education as share of national GDP. And the following one is the life expectancy of each country. And the next one is the housing purchasing power relative to the country. This is how expensive is the square meter on each country. So the more houses you see here is the cheapest. So you can buy more houses with the money you earn on this country. Finally, the last one is the happiness index, which shows how people feel on that country. Are they happy? Are they sad? So in the end part of the pavilion, there's a voting system where people can select which country they like the most. So I changed that that visual representation. I did a conceptual representation, which is a bird flocks migrating from left to right on the long stripes through modified path, which depend on the life variables that I just explained of the selected countries. So if I show you now what I mean with this, for example, this one is the stripe for Australia, and this triangle is a bird, and people who like this path of migration can add a bird into the stripe. So the interesting thing about this is that birds interact between themselves and act like flocks of birds who are migrating from left to right. This is work in progress, so right now it's not working quite right. The idea is that they stay inside the shapes. And this one, the width of the path represent the variables. Here you can see the life variables that I explained earlier in a ranking, like from 0 to 10, 8, 10. So this is 8, this is 10, and this is 4, and so on. I will add a legend that explains which part of the path represent which life variable on that country. So this is the conceptual representation. There will be 6 of these stripes, one right after the other, I mean side by side, for people to compare them and see which country they like the most. The next representation that I'm working to is the abstract representation. This is a cell evolution through time while interacting with neighboring cells, depending on the same life variables of the selected country. I will show you this one again for you to have a better understanding of what I mean here. This is the cell representation of Australia. Again, though, there will be 6 of these stripes side by side for people to walk by and compare the differences between countries. So if you click here, it's not that clear right now, but you can add more cells and they will interact with their neighbors. Each country has a different behavior. For example, if I select Chile, I got another behavior depending on the same life variables. So you can tell here that each pixel is a cell who is interacting with its neighbor, and the rules of interactions depends on the life variables. It's a very interesting approach, which is super abstract. So yeah. And the final one, my proposed future work, what I propose to design and build for the final display of information on the data journalism installation is a mix of both conceptual and abstract representations on each country stripe for visitors to experience a richer comparison between the selected countries. So what I mean by this is basically having the same both stripes. This one on bottom, I mean under this one, and this one going on top. Of course, I will have to tweak the colors and the transparency for this to be understandable and not too noisy. And that's my proposition, like one right on top of the other. So each country will have a different background of evolving cells and a different path of birds migrating from one side to the other. That's it. That's my work in progress. Thank you very much.